Hello and welcome back, and today we're going to be looking at Asustor's ADM software and comparing against the Synology DSM software. Now, for those that aren't aware, ADM has gone to a more recent version recently, it's 3.4, and Synology's DSM is on 6.2.2. I'm sorry if my throat seems a bit gravelly. It was a long weekend. I'll bore you with it another time, but today, let's look at the software. So let's get straight into it, in fact, and talk about these two bits of software. So first and foremost, it's worth highlighting that both of them arrive with a client application for finding your NAS on the network. The network, of course, being where all of your devices are located in your home or business environment, and they're all sharing the same internet connection. Now, although there are a multitude of different client applications readily available right now, we're going to focus just on these. They've got different applications for backing up and synchronization and other stuff. But the reason we're focusing on these is these are probably going to be, if not the first, possibly the only applications that both brands that you installed for your client Mac or Windows machine. Both of them scan that local area network, and as you can see on the Asustor software, Asustor Control Center, it has found the NAS on the network. And the Synology one, DSM's Synology Assistant, it has found that NAS. These are the two NASs we're using today. You can see the IPs there at the top. Ignore where it says not secure. It's just to do with local area connections, not internet connections. Okay, so if we were to double click these, they would open up in our web browsers respectively. And again, in the interest of comparing these two softwares, I had to make a straight choice between either flicking between them, one screen against another, or split screening them in this manner. I think this is the best way to do it, and where necessary, I will move the margin between them like this to give a greater focus on one or the other. But it's worth saying that when I do that, I would go as far as to say that it's easier to compare them both live at the same time and let them both show you what the other one compares against and what they're doing. But don't be surprised if while I'm doing this, from time to time, there are slight window issues when we open them up in this form or fashion. So I try not to condemn both respective NAS brands for that. But if we were to right click either one of these, we can find out that we can map network drives very easily on both of these two. And most mapped network drives will appear on our local machine. So if we go to my PC object here, we can see that both of those NASs along with other NASs in my network environment are connected as network drives, which is pretty impressive indeed. It's always handy. There's the Asustor and there's the Synology. And again, with this means you can interact with these softwares and use them on your own local client machines and your own third-party software, be it for photo video editing, backup, or just enjoying the files on your NAS. So if we make our way into the respective NAS operating systems, we can see how both of these NAS vendors have gone about presenting their graphical user interface. In the past, when we've talked about Synology, we've always said that they're using a very Mac-friendly design, although of course there are elements that will be familiar to Android and Windows users. We can see that their desktop interface here, it's this big blue screen here, and of course you can change the wallpaper on either one of these. From here, we can go to the main menu, which shows all of our apps. And of course, if we do want those shortcuts and widgets, we can quite literally drag them here, and then boom, they appear on our desktop interface. Also from here, we can see lots of information about our personal account and, check notifications and more about the system, as well as doing restarts. Also from here, we can look at the control panel, which gives us real-time information about the background of the device, access to the resource monitor, and just change things on our device. This is going to be one of those occasions where doing half screen is going to make things a little tough. If we move over to the Asustor, I would say it's far more like Android in its design. And indeed, if you are an iPhone user, I'm sure you can recognize the kind of desktop interface that will allow you to see all of the apps that you're going to use immediately. You can flick between multiple screens for the different applications that are readily available, and all of them are executed with a single click. At the top, they've got that ready information there, and from here you can also get lots of information about the personal account user, which is a little bit more information than what the Synology gives you too. On top of that, you've got a bit more information here with regards to the volume, whereas the Synology focuses a little bit more about the individual user without expanding out further. And of course, the ability to change that theme, the background theme, different colors, themes, alternatives and more and there are exclusive themes included in the Nimbus Store NAS. Now, you may notice that it's the first time I've mentioned the word Nimbus Store in this video. The reason I'm doing that is I don't want this to be too much about the individual NAS devices on screen. I'd rather, where possible, keep this whole thing generally about the software that's readily available on the NASs in question. Depending on the different Asustor or Synology NAS you buy, it will have different CPU and memory options as well as the amount of storage available. Consequently, the system performance may differ in the NAS that you use. I sound a little bit like an airline there. So do bear in mind that the performance we're seeing here is using the Nimbus Store 4, that quad-core Intel NAS, and the Synology here is using the DS2419 Plus, an Intel Atom quad-core NAS. But these experiences will be very, very similar, if not identical, to the version of ADM and DSM that you choose to use. So if we go into the control panel, access control, actually that's the wrong option there, I've selected on the Asustor. If we make our way into the control panel of this device, or just go straight into the settings, we can compare how both of these two brands have approached the matter of configuration. Now, Synology, as per their rhetoric, have kept it fantastically simple. I have talked about this in the past, whereby with Synology, when it comes to their control panel, if you are quite a noob to this kind of thing, not just networking but IT in general, you will prefer their approach to many, many things. They have kept things fantastically simple and hidden a lot of those difficult choices and configuration choices in the background. However, the minute you start to learn even a pinch of IT or networking knowledge, or you already have an existing knowledge of IT applications, this will feel fantastically limited. Even if you go over to the top right and switch to advanced mode, there isn't, oh, that was basic mode. We were looking at advanced mode. Wow. The control panel here breaks things down. So straight away, when I want to do something on this NAS, it's not completely intuitive which one of these I need to go for. If you are using a Synology NAS and say, for example, you wanted to change the network configuration, it's not immediately apparent to me that I need to go to this network option. The way it's displayed doesn't feel very fast. And for example, with external USB drives, if you connected a USB and wanted to conduct a USB copy, where would you go? Would you go down here to external devices? Would you go to storage? Would you go into hardware? It doesn't feel immediate in this. Now, once you go into one of these options, so we're going to the network access, it then switches to this side panel view, a side panel view that most NAS brands use, which to me kind of eliminates the whole point of that control panel interface they were going for, looking like this. If as soon as you click one, this user interface is exactly those same options as before, but in a list form, the same as Asustor and the same as QNAP and the same as the rest of them. We will of course be comparing all of these different OSs. I've already done Synology and QNAP a number of times, but it still seems weird that you would click an option and then just go straight to this. So if we compare the network choices between the two of them, despite the fact that Synology NAS has a reputation, and Synology in general pushes a reputation for simplicity, there's more tabs, which again seems very counterintuitive. We've got the same options for the server name, and we can enable, stuff like enabling IPv6 is something that's available on both. Network interface on both of them, if we select both of those options, displays the number of network interfaces available. This Synology, for example, has a PCIe slot, and if I installed a card in there, it would appear here. If we look at one of these options, move that over ever so slightly, click down there, we can find out more information about this connection. If we go for the Asustor and move that across, have a look, we can find out lots of information about this connection. But what I would say is there seems to be a pinch more information, not much more, but a pinch more information on the Asustor. And of course, you can edit and manage this user interface if you so choose. And again, there seems to be more choices on the Synology. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing comes down to you, because the Synology is meant to be for people who aren't hugely IT versed. It's meant to be capable, certainly, and to keep things simple. But even I'm surprised that there's seemingly a few extra choices in this area than the Asustor. The Asustor seemingly keeping things a pinch more simple for users here. And again, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing comes down to you, the end user. So if we move back to the control panel and we look at hardware, so let's look at the hardware options on both of these. Now, on the Synology, I'm going to assume that under Info Center. Let's have a look. I'm a man who likes Synology, and it is comparatively new to the user interface of Asustor NAS. I've only used them a handful of times in the past. But looking at this, if I was completely new to the world of network attached storage, I'm going to like this Asustor layout just a little bit more at this point, because things just seem to be a little more understandable, a little bit more, easier to read, which again, that's only as a brand new user. If I was quite versed in IT as I am and network storage, this isn't going to seem this is going to seem too simplistic to me, with the Synology seeming a lot more helpful, which is completely the reverse of what I expected in this comparison. So if we go for one more option, and we had to look at it because both of them give you the ability to access the NAS via the internet by setting up their own respective internet-based connection options, where you set up an account with Asustor or Synology respectively, and then you can access your NAS from anywhere in the world. Both of them give you that option, and again, they've both gone for the same kind of thing, but they both use the word connect. And again, extra tabs and options, but of course, had I signed into the Asustor side, there probably would be a couple more options readily available. Now, there are loads of options here, with everything from malware defense and other options that are readily available in the App Center. So why don't we head over to the App Center and have a look how one goes about installing applications on this device. So in the case of the Asustor, we've got App Central. Click there, and in the case of the Synology, we have the Package Center. Both of them heavily stylized from things like iTunes, Google Play, Windows Store to a lesser degree. All of them are comparable to that. I will say, of course, as mentioned before, there are a lot more first-party applications on the Synology than the QNAP. In fact, the QNAP makes a conscious, not the QNAP, Freudian slip there, the Asustor has a lot more options open to you for third-party app support, whereas the Synology has a larger degree of first-party apps. Synology invests very, very heavily in first-party apps, to a point whereby what they want from users is to replace all of their existing third-party applications with their first-party apps. And for the most part, they're doing a very, very good job with options for large spread system environment backups on VMs, PCs, mobile devices and other NASes with active backup for free. They've got cloud-based applications for backups and data migration. Chat as an alternative to Skype and WhatsApp. They've got their own drive system that's very comparable to DropBox and more, a one portal access point. Surveillance applications, virtual machine applications, NAS to NAS and system to system rsync and system hibernation. You've got System High Ability and Manager, as well as Synology High Availability, that allows you to have two NASes running synchronously that can take over from the other in the event of issues. Synology Moment, with its photo recognition and facial recognition built in. Loads and loads of first and third party applications. Asustor has a lot of first party apps, but nowhere near as many as that. And the ones that are there, although good, do seem, by comparison, a touch more simplistic. The photo and video application, for example, are a little bit more bare bones compared to Synology's, and we will go and look at them in a little bit more detail to show you. But that said, the Asustor still covers nearly all of those applications, with the exception of things like high availability to a slightly different degree, as well as Synology Moment, Synology Drive, and that Synology one at the top there, active backup. But the Asustor makes up for that by moving things in a slightly different direction, a far more customized direction and a far more bespoke setup. So they've both got support for Docker, for example, and they've both got virtual machine support. However, with the Asustor, you've got support for VirtualBox, which means that you have a much wider degree of virtual machine creation options on the Asustor, with things like Mac OSs and custom ground up Linux-based VMs that are just not supported on the Synology. Likewise, they've both got antivirus and malware support options with first and third party providers. And in terms of third party apps, the Asustor is just massive with a wide degree of options. Let's have a look. Go right down to the bottom to the third party apps on the Synology. The apps that are supported on the Asustor, they have got premium third party app support, as well as a lot of homebrew and custom applications that are being developed all the time for support on platforms, again, such as Amazon Prime and their video streaming applications. There's even slightly more customized, I'd say homebrew ones for things like Netflix and others. And of course, support of third party applications unofficially like Kodi. Now, you may have noticed something down here called Asustor Portal. Asustor Portal gives you the ability to take advantage of the HDMI port on your Asustor, which means you can the HDMI port on the Asustor NAS, and nearly all Asusors have HDMI ports, will give you that user interface and the ability via that graphical user interface to install lots of individual applications for access over HDMI. Now, you can install a keyboard and mouse, a Bluetooth dongle, or wireless controllers, and from there have loads of gaming done on this device. And there's so many things that relate to gaming on the Nimbus Store, such as using your Steam library on the NAS and playing over 2.5 to 5 GBE, and all of the retro gaming options that are open to you on this device with all of those great apps, something that's just not possible, at least not directly, on the Synology. But again, you may not be the target audience for that. While I've been scrolling these apps, you may have noticed support for things like DropBox and cloud support and synchronization on things like Elephant Drive and Backblaze. Both of these devices can back up one way and the other to a cloud account, all the data on the cloud to the NAS, or vice versa, completely for free using those cloud apps, which means that you've got that backup option, as well as USB backups, network backups, NAS to NAS backups, and more. So again, a great degree of app support on both of these devices. So if we move out of the App Center, because installing apps really is a one-click system there, what we'll do is we'll start looking at media on these NASs. We're going to go into too much detail today with stuff like VMs and stuff like that, but what we'll do is we'll open up the respective applications on both of these NASs for handling photos, music, and video. So on the desktop interface here, make my way to the other screen, and I'll open up Looks Good, which will be in another tab. I'll open up Photo Gallery, another tab, and finally we'll look at the music one, Sounds Good. While it's opening those tabs, because again I am using video recording software here, we are going to see a slight lag in performance. While we do that, we'll open up the respective photo, video, music applications on the Synology. Now, it would be remiss of me not to highlight that although you can use PhotoStation, the majority of users now are moving over to Synology Moments, because it's just a breath of fresh air and something that they, between them and QNAP, they're the only ones right now that are producing software like these. I'm actually struggling to find Moments though on right now on the screen, which should be installed on this NAS. If it's not, we're going to have to get that installed mighty quickly. We'll get that installed on there. We have used Moments in other videos, of course, already. And while that's doing that, let's go there. Let's find out, did I install Moments in the end? Or am I just being blind? I haven't installed Moments on this now. So let's get that installed. But for now, we won't focus on Moments because we've got a whole video based on Moments. But just take my word for it. We've got on there photo recognition, thing recognition, and deep learning and AI to catalog your photos. Do check out my separate video on Moments. There isn't an application available right this readily on Asustor from Asustor. So we aren't going to focus on that too much because it feels a little bit unfair to do that. But let's get the music applications and video applications open so we can see how they compare. So the way both of these companies have approached handling your media, once again photos, videos and music, is slightly different. Now if we go for the Sounds Good option, this is where we can look at how music can be played from your NAS. If we full screen that for a second. From here, we've got music that's on basically those test files that I use for all the other videos, and all the music's there. At the bottom, we have a control bar where we can listen to all the music, and you can go through the device on folder and smart album level. You can also list by artist, and there's lots of other ways to enjoy your music. And once again, this is via the web browser interface and that LAN. However, it is worth highlighting that, of course, the majority of you will want to enjoy this music over DLNA and other means. So this, although it's available and music can be played here, I'm not going to play it because of YouTube's rules. Don't get me wrong, this isn't all copyrighted. Some of it's absolutely free use, but why take the risk these days? And on top of that, you can get album art and create favourite playlists. But apart from that, it's not the most fully fledged detail application, but what I will say is it does give you a lot more than some of the lesser brands out there. If we move that to the other side, we can look at the Synology. We've got all kinds of stuff happening there in the background. Now, in the case of the Synology, music is handled with an on-screen app. So by that, top photo station, video station, those sort of things, these all open separately. Get rid of that package sensor, we've opened up in error. And the audio station application for Synology, if we full screen there, shows us an in DSM app. And once again, it's a little bit more graphical, although both of them do let you use thumbnails and stuff like that. The Synology one does feel ever so slightly smoother, and both of them give you access, I should add, to the ability to stream and control streaming content, as well as adding online radio stations and creating your own customized playlists. If we go back to there, again, it's finding media servers in a local environment, and the Asustor does that as well, but nowhere near as smoothly, I would say. The Asustor doesn't find those smart albums out there and those smart players as fluidly. You can add other resources and add other locations, other playlists, and both of them have the ability to browse individual folders, smart albums, playlists, and more. Now, when it comes to photos and video, however, if we remove photo gallery, we can look at how they both handle photos. I've had this tab open for a little bit too long, so I'm just going to have to quickly refresh the Asustor NAS there. And that's a standard timeout. Don't worry, that's not going to happen to you. If we go to the albums, we can look at all the individual albums via the photo gallery application on this Nimbustor NAS. If we open that up there, go into the photo manager, open that up, and photo gallery. Now, Photo Station 6, as already mentioned, is not the only photo application on a Synology NAS. You've got Photo Station and, of course, Moment, and they are gradually moving over as much as possible to that Moment application, with its ability to recognize, once again, faces and subjects. So we've got all those faces there for facial recognition. There's me, we add my name. It's as simple as that. And then we can add people. Who's this? Click Rob, there's Robbie, boom, merge the two albums. And if I upload photos of myself going forward, it will recognize me from using this. So this is something going forward, and it's still scanning the remaining photos on the NAS to make it even better. On top of that, you've got subjects too that identify food, drink, holiday, dessert, and core subjects, and none of these are in the descriptions. This is all using deep learning and AI. But if we look at the Photo Station app, that is your default photo app, and you can create different albums that it searches, although you can't browse just as folders, which is really disappointing. Whereas Photo Gallery on the Asustor allows you to sequence smart albums that you've created where it scans certain indexes, or browse files and folders easy. So if we look at the Berlin folder here, it's not many photos. If we look for a photo there, we'll go for those two pretzels, and from here we can find lots of information about that photo, what took the photo, where the photo was taken. This opens up in Google Maps, and you can tag and add more information about those, but it doesn't utilize deep learning or AI recognition that you saw in Moments. That's why we're only going to compare Photo Gallery with Photo Station. I just thought it would be remiss not to mention Moments as well. So if we come out of that photo, we can do lots of stuff here. We can change how we see these photos, add tags, share them on different platforms, allow them to be uploaded and downloaded to different sources. And again, the smart album there will do scans and sort of put them all together and give you ways to filter between individual photos. So you can say all the photos taken within this time period that are all on this theme, these folders, these playlists and more. But it's more of a filter system and not AI supported, which I know, given in 2019 we're seeing more and more AI support on these devices. It's a shame that Asustor haven't gone down that road quite yet, although I can imagine it's something they will be working on very soon. PhotoStation 6 has that file access but no folder access, and also sequences stuff like videos and to a greater degree. Both of them support videos, but PhotoStation 6 sort of merges them better into your overall albums. The user interface does seem a little cleaner on PhotoStation. What I will say is that Photo Gallery to me was a very, very good for what you are getting for that budget. Because remember, the hardware, the ports, and value for money, as well as hardware versus cost, is greater on the Asustor NAS. So it's all a question of where that money goes. I know that Synology probably invest a lot more on their software than they do on their hardware, and that is definitely clear between these two devices. But again, photos for me just navigated a lot quicker on Photo Gallery than they were on PhotoStation 6. But it would be remiss of me not to highlight that they look a lot prettier overall. So for what you lose in time, you gain in general user interface over the two of them. Both of them supply that means of getting more information about the photo, and you've got that great little map interface as well on this, because you've got all that stuff about actions. You can even pull up a worldwide map on PhotoStation 6, which identifies where all of your photos are located. Options which, if they are available on the Asustor, I've not found remarkably easily, which ultimately is what it comes down to when you're looking at stuff like this. You want things to be intuitive and nice and easy. And on PhotoStation, what you get in speed on PhotoStation, you lose out to on Photo Gallery, you lose out to an overall speed and presentation on the Synology. Sorry, I got a bit garbled there in the middle. Bottom line, fast and easy and slower, but pretty. Now, if we move away from photos, we can look at videos. Now, both of them look remarkably similar for the videos. Both of them let you sequence and index individual files and folders on the NAS. I've got TV shows, I've got movies, and each one of them you can give them their own designated album where you get them to sequence different things. If we look at here, we'll look at that episode of The Thick of It there, and likewise we'll go to the TV show tab here and The Thick of It here, and straight away if we look, we can see that even though I didn't include thumbnails, I didn't include descriptions, Video Station sequences things like IMDb and scrapes metadata that fill in all the blanks. I didn't type this. This is all included when it sequences your apps. For those that have used Plex Media Server, you will see stuff like this on Plex, because Plex is, for the most part, a paid platform. Whereas on the Asustor, we do find that a lot of that information isn't readily available. If we go into the settings, we can, of course, change things, change those individual files and folders, get the library to be updated. Media Converter allows us to change the way the system behaves there in the background. So we enable both of those features. We can get it to change the time and how and when it will do the conversions and re-indexing. And if we attach a DVT USB dongle or a cable to Ethernet LAN adapter, we can have those TV recordings being saved directly on the NAS. Each one of these tabs and folders allows us to browse media, and there is a folder-based media access point here on the Asustor video file viewer, which again, very useful indeed and often overlooked. It's only really available from them, QNAP and TerraMaster right now, with everyone else trying to make people urge towards smarter, which, although it is smart, you're still being forced to do things the way the NAS wants you to do it. But those thumbnails and that metadata is still fantastic, and it's a shame that we're not seeing all of that from the Asustor. And again, we can pin things, we can share things, we can let people upload and download from things, and of course we can play things. And you can carry on from where you left off on certain files. And if we move over to the Synology, we can of course play files from there too. So if we go for The World's End, great film, click play, sort of descriptions. It's even scraped reviews, and we can even change. There's individual videos like samples and stuff in there, and things can be played very, very easily. Now again, moving away from Video Station there, go away from there, we can of course take this opportunity, after looking at Moments, we can look at some of the other applications that a number of people will be using. Now, one app that I'm not going to go into too much detail on here, because we're going to do an entire dedicated video on this, is to do with surveillance. Both of these providers supply a surveillance platform. So in other words, the ability to have a bunch of IP cameras, I've got it opened up earlier, and with these multiple cameras supported, will all appear on a control deck like here, and you can set up customized alerts, pan tilt zoom and other stuff for these cameras, so you can monitor multiple cameras in a home or business environment via anywhere in the world. Synology have their award-winning surveillance station application. But what I will say is, with the Nimbus Store and ADM software, you will need to install the client app for your PC or Mac system. I clicked on Plex in error there. We wanted surveillance station. Actually, we'll come around to Plex in a second, so I'll leave that tab open. So you do have to install a client application for your PC or Mac system to enjoy Nimbus Store's Asustor's surveillance software. It's still very, very good, and that's why we're going to do a whole dedicated video on that. But I just wanted to highlight that versus Synology's surveillance station application, which is a whole control deck as well, but the whole thing is still within your web browser. You can install a client application for your PC or Mac system that allow you to watch and monitor and track alerts on your PC or Mac system, but it's the fact that you can choose between them. On top of that, Synology have invested a lot in their surveillance platform. It's not only got its own desktop interface as well as a large camera support, although both of them do have that. You've also got individual apps that can be installed in this user interface. So I've opened it up twice in error. If we move that there, get rid of that. On top of those extra applications you can install, you can also do things. Both of them have got mobile applications, but the Synology software allows you to install an app to turn your mobile phone into a live IP camera, as well as the ability to live stream via YouTube your surveillance camera via the Synology surveillance station interface. So these are options that are not only not available on the Asustor, they're not available on a number of other platforms. Even that App Center is great there, as well as smart time-lapsing and great recording and indexing options, whereby if you do have alerts with the cameras connected, you have a timeline feature here, and there'll be little green lines indicating movements or triggering of alerts, where if you want to monitor alerts but not get them sent to your phone or whatever, they're available here. But as I say, I'll try not to focus too much on surveillance, because surveillance station is a whole big video in of itself, and how it compares with surveillance center for ADM is a big enough topic that we're not going to feature it here in the video. Finally, let's talk about Plex. Plex Media Server, one of the main reasons a lot of home users buy a NAS. I can quite honestly say there's almost no difference between the Synology and the Asustor method of supporting Plex. Although I'm signed into one of them, both of them will have exactly the same user interface. I've not signed in to Plex on the Synology, but if you want to see more about that, I've got loads of Plex videos out there. And of course, Plex has all that sequencing of metadata and the ability to share all of your media very, very easily. So with regards to Plex, on a software level between Synology and Asustor, identical, because they're both using a third-party app. But the performance of Plex will differ depending on the NAS you go for. We have a whole video overviewing Plex on the Nimbus Store 4 coming very soon. Moving away from Plex, we can just round things up by talking about how these two systems deal with data. Now, both of them, for Intel-based NASs and some Realtek ones, support BTRFS as a file system. Both of them have got great RAID support, and both of them have got a whole user interface dedicated to monitoring your storage, all readily available via the user interface of ADM and DSM. But what I will add is that Synology do have Synology Hybrid RAID, which is that great way to mix and match your drives, which, although you're not going to use that on day one, a couple of years down the line, the ability to add bigger drives to your RAID array or to be able to have use up 2 bays in a RAID and then expand the RAID gradually, is something that SHR really makes easy for you, Synology Hybrid RAID. That said, you've still got all of the RAID level configurations that you think you're ever going to need available to you on ADM, and of course from iSCSI and of course LUN targets, as well as map network drives, volume control, and individual health management, and the increased management of drives with Disk Doctor. Something that you only get on ADM is definitely something that needs its due credit. Both of them support SSD cache with the installation of an SSD inside your NAS, and of course RAID 0 lets you pull all of those drives if you so choose, but what I would recommend is SSD cache to really improve those read and write speeds internally. And Seagate drives on both systems will allow you to use iWolf Health Management and check the status of your drives over time, as well as Asustor having their own dedicated Disk Doctor, which is quite neat indeed. But I'm going to round things up here. Again, this isn't about so much which is better, because both companies have chosen their priorities and where they've invested your money when you buy one of these devices, with Synology aiming a lot more on the first-party software and Asustor aiming a lot more at the hardware and third-party app support, although of course they both have first and third-party app support and mobile apps available too. I would say the Nimbus Store NAS, if you're a little bit more of a techie mind, then the Asustor NAS, surprisingly, it isn't actually going to be too difficult for both novices and experts to get their hands on, with the Synology platform probably slightly better for the noob, although some of the things earlier in the video may have countered that point ever so slightly. So once again, I'm going to round things up here. I'm not going to say one's better than the other, very important, but I hope this video has helped you choose which one's best for your setup and for your data storage needs. Thank you so much for watching. We've got comparisons with other brands coming very, very soon. I look forward to showing you those, but otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.